I'm Janelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and I want to welcome you to this keynote conversation with Dulé Hill and James Rodriguez, stars and executive producers of Psych 2, Lassie Come Home. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Psych debuted all the way back in 2006, went on to air 8 seasons, spawned a musical episode and 2 new films, including Psych 2, Lassie Come Home, which premiered on the Peacock streaming service in July. But I actually want to go back to the beginning. When you first started this show, did you ever imagine it would have such a lengthy run and you'd be living with these characters for 14 years? Is that strange to think about?
I figured the pilot wouldn't get picked up and I'd be back in New York doing theater. But it was a quick job, and I would get paid for it. And then, because up until that point, I was essentially the kiss of death to anything that I got cast in. I just assumed it would be another chapter in what was becoming a growingly inauspicious career. But then the magic ingredient showed up, and it was Dulé Hill, looking a lot like he looks right now with a tighter fade.
The tighter fade, and maybe a little less beard and a little less gray. But for myself, I thought that if the network gave us a chance to find our footing, that we could have a nice run. I thought that there was something special and unique there. I thought Steve Franks really had formulated a nice dynamic on the paper. And if we'd given a chance to at least find our stride, that we would be able to do something. I did not foresee the length that we have now, though. I did not see 8 seasons and 2 Psych movies and counting. That was so far off of my thought of what the show could do. I'd come from a show that had a long running, a long 7 seasons, so I knew that shows could do it, but I definitely did not see this coming.
James, were you sort of a show killer? I wasn't aware that you had series that didn't go as long before. Were they pilots or were they actual series?
No, they actually went to series, and that's precisely why you weren't aware of them. I think the longest one, I believe, I was on a show called Mismatch, and I think that might have gone 1 full season. Nobody saw it, but it was. I do think it made it 1 full season.
No, you're selling yourself way too short, Roday. I saw it.
That's true.
Yes,
that was the work that Dulé was familiar with.
Yes,
and
I saw the hair. I saw the hair. Yes.
But there were a couple shows before that I think got yanked after 2 and 3 episodes, respectively. So it wasn't a great run. And honestly, like I sort of felt like, it doesn't have to be for everyone. Doing TV, maybe I need to go back to New York. I belong on the stage doing theater. That's a noble, profession, and it's old school, and that's good. You can convince yourself that it's going to be good, and then Psych changed all of that.
Wow. And the show hinges so much on the chemistry between you two. It's so much fun to see you work together. I'm curious, do you first remember meeting each other? Were you like, that's the guy from Mismatch? Were you excited?
Here's the funny thing. I didn't realize that Roday was the guy from Mismatch until we showed up to do the pilot. And inside the production office, they had all of our headshots on the wall. And it's when I saw the headshot on the wall that I said, wait a second. Because the way his hair was in that headshot, I said, this is the dude from Mismatch who had that terrible ass hairdo. This is exactly who this dude is. But I do remember meeting Roday the first time. I was having a chemistry read with him because I met with Steve Franks, Chris Hensey, and Kelly Kolchak initially. We talked about the role, and then the next meeting was having a chemistry read with Roday, who was already cast as Sean. And I vividly remember being completely shocked and thrown off course because he wasn't staying on dialogue. He was riffing and improvising, and he was doing really great at it. But I'm coming from the world of Aaron Sorkin, so it was no. What is written is what you say. So at first, I'm like, brother, are you trying to sabotage my meeting right here? What's it like? What's happening here? And then the second time I met him was when he came up. He came up to my house because I was getting ready to test for the role, and that's when I think we really started to connect right there. Started to, I guess, find our groove.
Yeah, I had sort of improvised with everybody through that process. So it was just sort of like, it was second nature for me at that point because I had read with so many different versions of Gus that I was getting bored, frankly. And so I was just changing it up, and then it became like an interesting exercise, and like, who was sort of open to working that way, and who wasn't. And it was kind of a fun litmus test to see how loosey goosey this connection could be. And so you didn't get anything different, and you didn't get anything special. Everybody got the looseness.
I was shook. I was like, what is this dude doing? I said, oh, wait till I see this dude out there in the parking lot.
But the good news is everybody wanted this for Dulé. We were all sort of collectively on board the idea of what he could bring to Gus, and how it was so very different than what was on the page. And frankly, I think what was in Steve Franks' brain, and had been in his brain from the time that he started working on Psych. It was very exciting that everyone was sort of willing to pivot and change course. And I personally had not been exposed to that type of groupthink before. So I found it incredibly refreshing that Steve was so open, and that when the opportunity presented itself and Dulé was available, everybody was like, well, yeah, obviously we'll do this. And we did. And that was very exciting.
I want to talk about how not only these characters evolved over the years, but how you as people have. You're both producers on the show. James, you've actually went on to write and direct episodes, all while being the lead actors as well. What sort of prompted you both to get more involved behind the scenes, or was that something you had always hoped for from the start?
Part of it at the beginning was because we just needed to. The show shot in Vancouver in a bit of a bubble. Steve and the writers were all in Los Angeles. USA was a fledgling network at the time. They hadn't yet cemented themselves as like the blue sky juggernaut that they became. And we didn't quite know what the show was. We knew what the premise was. We sort of had ideas of where it could go and what we wanted it to be, but we hadn't found our sea legs, and Dulé and I were the two guys that were there every day, all day long. So it kind of became necessary that we take on some extra responsibility and help guide the ship. And then once we found our groove, it was great because everybody got to participate in the success.
I mean, is that a normal part of the creative? Did you enjoy being part of the creative process? Or do you sometimes just like being, an actor for hire? I imagine it changes with every job.
I think it changes with every job. In terms of being on site, it was refreshing and it was fun. I mean, Roday and I, we really had a nice synergy. We worked well together, and I guess coming to set and figuring out how to make this thing better each time was a nice exercise to do for 8 seasons. And I think that's tools that you take with you into other projects. But there is also sometimes where it's nice where you are coming in to do the work and somebody else is dealing with all of those, I guess, those headaches.
Now, how did bringing these characters back for Psych 2 sort of happen? I feel like after you ended the series, there was always talk of doing a movie, and then the first movie was so successful. I'm sort of curious if it was a matter of you were all like, we're there as soon as you can make it happen. And James, as a co-writer on the film, how did you sort of decide what the story would be?
Well, interestingly enough, one of the first approaches to making something beyond the series was to do 2 movies and shoot them back to back, because you can save a lot of money that way, and then the studio ends up with 2 movies and they can drop them whenever they want. And when we thought that might be what we were doing, we broke 2 stories. So we had 2 movies in our heads. And then when we ultimately decided to just shoot the first Psych movie, we kind of put the other story on the back burner, knowing that, hey, we can always do that one. And then a stroke of incredibly bad luck hit us and our cast when our dear brother and family member Tim Amundsen suffered a major stroke. So the first movie became kind of we have to do this. We have to do this for Tim. He couldn't be in the movie, the body of the film while we were shooting it. We had to rewrite the script last sort of 11th hour. He was able to appear on on one side of a phone call. But it felt like there was a glaring hole. There was a big hole for all of us when we made that first movie. And we knew that we would have to make at least one more because if Tim was going to battle through this and get back up on the horse, we wanted to be the ones that were there supporting him. So we took the story that we had always planned on doing, ironically, with Lasseter sort of front and center, and didn't actually have to change it that much because we had always planned on doing a sort of rear window homage, with Lasseter front and center in a hospital or like with a broken leg or something, solving a murder. And we still made that movie. We just did it using, his real life experience. Odd and ironic that those two sort of lined up the way that they did. So we ended up making a movie that we had always intended to make with Lasseter in the same position that we had planned on him being in, and Tim fighting back from suffering a major stroke. It was pretty crazy.
I think really it's a testament to how committed to the process Tim Hamilton is. You know what I mean? How committed to the storyline that he is. I mean, he said, you know what? He said, I'm going to go and have a stroke, and I'm going to, put myself in the situation so that when we go and do this film, I'll be ready to do it. And that's just Tim Hamilton for you. So I mean, he's my hero. He really is.
That is method.
That's method. You know what I mean? Timothy Hamilton. You don't get any better than that.
I am such a fan of his, and so it was the way that you worked it into the storyline. I know necessity is the mother of all invention, but it really felt organic and it was so terrific to see him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal artist and a phenomenal human being, and really has so much power, strength, and fortitude to be able to come up against this obstacle, this unexpected circumstance in life, and he really has pressed through and I guess keep shined even brighter and through the process. So I'm really, he really, like I said, I was joking in that before when I said he's my hero, but he really is one of my heroes.
I agree. Yeah,
it's amazing.
He never ceases to amaze me, and every time a hurdle is put in front of him, he leaps it. It's crazy. Every step along the way, he's exceeded every expectation. And I personally was worried that his chest hair would stop growing as a result of what he went through. And the good news is it has not.
No.
And I believe I heard Steve Frank say that he wanted to make 5 more movies. I don't know if he was kidding. I mean, it seems like a very arbitrary number, but are you guys up to continue these characters as long as he wants to?
I don't think he was kidding. I think Steve would make 25 more movies. I think he would make Psych forever. That's who he is. He's the tallest version of Peter Pan that you'll ever meet. And I think Psych is him, and he is Psych. And I think as long as there's an appetite and our fans remain as devoted to us as they always have been, I think we feel both an obligation and of a desire to give back, because we couldn't have done this without Steve, obviously, and we couldn't have done it without the Psychos. So it puts us in a pretty easy position to say yes.
Dulé, you up for more?
Oh yeah, I mean, Roday pretty much just said everything that I would say right there. Where as long as the fans have a desire for it, as long as there's still an appetite for it, we love the characters, we love getting together, we love the Psychos, we love engaging with the Psychos when the movies come out and checking back in with everybody. So as long as there was a deep desire to have more, and everybody was on board, we would do it.
You guys actually give them a great little nod at the start of this movie where you're like, our fans, there are certain things they expect of us.
Yeah.
What has the fan response been to this movie?
They've loved it. I mean, it always blows me away how the show premiered in 2006 and we're now in 2020. And the fact that there's that much engagement all of these years later, and the excitement for even the movie coming out, and once the movie came out, the excitement that is there, and I guess how it brings people together just to engage in Psych, it always blows me away. They've been the best group of fans that I could ever have asked for, that we could have ever asked for, and I look forward to seeing where the journey's going to go.
Yeah, we're like an old board game that keeps getting passed down from like siblings to younger siblings and from parents to children. And even though there's like bigger, shinier new toys out there, it's like Operation or Monopoly. Like there's always going to be a place for it, and nostalgia. And we realize that we are now part of younger people's nostalgia, which doesn't make a ton of sense because we're older than them. But it's been a very unique ride, and the way the fan base has grown has been unexpected, to say the least. It's something of a phenomenon, and we're very lucky to be a part of it, for sure.
The show was such a staple on the USA Network for so many years. But Psych 2, Lassie Come Home, made the jump to a brand new streaming platform, Peacock. Sort of curious how you felt about that, and with so many different platforms and ways to watch and consume shows like this. Does that excite you that there are all these places where you can continue to do this work?
I mean, my biggest concern was making sure that the Psychos found the movie. They had waited for it for a while, and especially getting the Lasseter that they love so much. I just wanted to make sure that we figured out a way where as many of our fans could see it as possible. And that was, to me, that was really the only challenge, because it is the future. It does seem to be where we're heading. You're going to have a bunch of apps and subscriptions if you want to see all the stuff that you love. Peacock, welcome to the club. But I think they're still working out deals with aggregates and who carries Peacock and who doesn't have Peacock, and what box you can get it on and what you can't. And so I just wanted to all get sort of streamlined so that people who want to see the movie can see the movie. So for me, it's less about, oh my gosh, there's so many platforms, and more about like make it easy for people to get it so that, it's not like, oh gosh, eye roll, headache, I got to go find some new thing. Just make it as user-friendly as possible. As for all the options out there, I don't know, Dulé, I would love to hear what you think of this too, but it feels like it's a very bizarre paradox, because it seems like there should be more work than ever, more opportunities than ever, more people creating content than ever. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's gotten any easier to move the ball down the field or to get a job. That's what's very strange to me about this whole movement of like more product than ever, more content than ever, more people making it than ever. And yet it still feels like you got to hustle more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree with that. I don't see, when I look at and see the different platforms that are coming out, I think it's a wonderful thing that there's all these different avenues, at least in theory, to either be a part of content that is already being produced or to even get content produced yourself. But I have not seen it necessarily roll out that way in terms of real action. I don't know. I mean, and maybe there's just more, maybe because there's more opportunity, there's more actors coming to the table, maybe. I mean, maybe that could be, maybe compared to say 20 years ago, there's more actors who are in the industry. But I have not necessarily seen it where it's just so much work because there's so much opportunities out there that you have to resist. You have to kind of weed through all the different options. That's like, oh my gosh, I have a headache. Please, no more offers.
Yeah.
And in terms of Psych being a part of the Peacock launch, one thing that I am, proud of and happy about was like Psych was a part of USA building that brand. Mm-hmm. They were an integral part of building that brand, and to be able for Psych to still be around, to be a part of the new incarnation for NBCUniversal, to be one of the pillars of the Peacock now, building out of the Peacock. It's a wonderful thing, and I think I appreciate how they allowed for the fan base to find the product without having to pony up money for the product. I think that it would have been a little harder for me if it was, okay, we're going to put it on the platform, but everyone has to pay to see it. It's like, well, that's not the psychos. I mean, there are psychos who will now, once they're there, will pay to go back and watch the series and go into the Peacock world. But this is a more of a love fest thing. So I do appreciate how they offer it up on the free tier. Mm-hmm. For people
I have to say, talking about all the various streaming platforms, and this was the easiest I've ever had signing up for something. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, oh, that's it? So,
right.
You talk about the lack of work sometimes, and obviously we're in this very strange period where with a pandemic, there's not as much production going on as, we would like. I'm sort of curious, are you working now through the COVID-19 epidemic? What do you need in order to feel safe to go to sets? What are sort of your ideal situations for moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm in production on the third season of A Million Little Things, and we started about 3 weeks ago. It's been very well thought out and regimented and laid out for us. There are protocols that are very easy to follow, and like anything, once they become routine, it starts to feel less alien and more like a new normal. So as far as safety goes, I would say we feel pretty safe. We're up in Vancouver, so I feel like we already have some separation just because we went from a place, where you're being bombarded by bad statistics that look bad, that sound bad every day. Sometimes they're dipping, sometimes they're getting worse. It's always in the thousands, to a place that is essentially flatten their curve, and there are rarely new cases. There have been almost no deaths, and so you cross the border and already you just feel like, oh, this is going to be better, this is going to be easier. And then on top of that, with the protocols, it seems like they're taking it even more seriously, even though they've kind of gotten ahead of it, than we were when we hadn't. So it makes sense. Like the equation goes, oh, well, this is why they're doing better, because this is their way of life. And everybody sort of collectively said, let's do this the right way. And look what happened. So I feel good. Our cast feels good. Our crew feels good. Like anything else, I think, the only way that this is going to go sideways is if people stop caring about one another and start doing stupid things outside of the workplace, because frankly, there's no way to sort of do that at the workplace. It's bubbled up. Everybody's masked. Everything is being cleaned constantly. We're testing twice a week. Some shows are doing more than that. It's going to be the responsibility that you carry when you leave set, and knowing that it's the same thing. Just because you punch out, you still have to. You just care about your fellow man and woman, and that's how we're going to beat this thing. And that's what I'm seeing up here in Vancouver. So I got to say, it feels relatively sustainable at this point, and I count myself very lucky to have a job and to be doing it up here.
Yeah, for myself, I actually backed out of a project that I was on before. It was filming on location, and it seemed to be going back too fast for me. I get the rush to go back to work. I get we all need to go back to work, but it seemed like it was doing too much too quickly. And then now, my first time on set is going to be coming up when we do this West Wing reunion. And I do, at least with the protocols that I've heard of so far, like we had that informative meeting, it seems it at least allows me to, quell some of my concerns, because I feel like, okay, there's enough steps being taken. The thing that really for me that is the most challenging though is the on location filming, because I have a wife, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I have a 1-year-old son. For example, my wife is on a show, and they're going to want her to quarantine for a couple of weeks before she starts to work, and then be out there for the entire length of the run. That just that can't happen when you have a 16-year-old daughter, and we are here. So really, my hope and desire is that more work can come back to Los Angeles. That the city of Los Angeles will do more our state of California will do more to bring work back to LA, so that families can be together. Because it really is a challenging thing to say, okay, I'm leaving in September and I'll see you in February. It's like, wait, what? And there's no, you don't want us coming back and forth. Before, like last year I was in Toronto filming, and I would fly back and forth. She was in Atlanta, fly back and forth, and we just would make it work. But if it's going to be a type of thing where people need to be kind of stay in certain places, that gets real tricky for families. So that's the focus that I would like to see the industry now start to look at, say, what can we do? How can we make this? And I know they're just starting to ramp back up now, but I hope that is the next thing that they focus on, is how do we still nurture families, because people cannot just necessarily get up and be gone for 9 or 10 months out the year when they have, you know, a 15-year-old, 16-year-old child at home who also has their needs also.
I didn't realize that the West Wing reunion was going to be, I thought it was going to be done over Zoom. You're actually doing it in person.
Yeah, we're doing it in person. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Before we go, I'm curious, you know, Sean and Gus have been through so much over the years. Is there any kind of dream storyline you would like to see in one of these upcoming 5 movies?
Wow. And upcoming storyline.
I think to me, the novelty, and this is actually recently informed by me binging the first season of Cobra Kai, which it took me way too long to do because Ralph and Billy are both alumni of the show, and they're both wonderful gentlemen, and we know them both. And obviously we love the Karate Kid. It's part of our childhood. So it took me way too long to get to it. But watching it, I was like, wow, this is such a novelty. Like, these 2 guys created these iconic figures that everyone can identify and thinks of when you say Karate Kid. You know, you think of Daniel and Cobra Kai and the whole thing, and we're getting to watch them step back into those skins, 35 years later. What a rare and unusual opportunity. And I think they're pulling it off like beautifully. Like, what a neat trick. Like, that show just goes down like Kool-Aid for me. And to a lesser extent, we're doing the same thing. Like, so for me, it's less about individual storylines and just about like the novelty of seeing us be 20-somethings and then 30-somethings and now 40-somethings playing the same characters. It just hasn't happened that often. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's exciting to watch these characters grow over decades. You know, that's not a movie where, you know, you're using prosthetics or visual effects to make people look younger and older. It's actually in real time. So I think the most exciting element about Psych moving forward and doing more movies is just the evolution of characters that were born in 2006.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer right there. You can't really add to that. I mean, having the characters evolve over the years and seeing how their life evolves, how it all is happening in real time. When Sean and Gus first got together, I mean, Gus wasn't having a baby on the way, married and engaged and having a baby on the way. Sean wasn't married, and Sean wasn't dating Juliet. Actually, they didn't even know Juliet even existed. And I think as the series is going on, or the show is going on, the storyline is going on, seeing how their life evolves, and how they even peering into the life of Lassie, the life of Juliet, the life of Selene, and seeing how things evolve for them along this journey that they're on, I think would be interesting to see. Because I mean, again, like it's like we're in there, as Roday was saying, we're in our 40s now. At least the characters are in there. I mean, I'm not in my 40s. I mean, I'm 25. I don't know what he's talking about. But the characters are in the 40s, you know. And I think seeing how life progresses for them over time has been fun to play, and I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes as the series. I say the series as the storyline goes on.
And this is also the first time that we've potentially had Sean and Gus in stable relationships at the same time that have the potential to go the distance. So it's also the first time we've seen 2 strong women characters that are going to be a part of this universe now, and how they get along with one another, and what that team up could potentially look like as well, since neither of them are going anywhere, and Sean and Gus are never going to stop being Sean and Gus. I think that adds a whole new flavor to it that we haven't had on our show before.
Well, I look forward to 50 years from now when they're in an old folks home together, making everyone crazy. I honestly, I hope you guys just keep doing these. It's so fun to revisit them. I want to remind everyone watching at home that Psych 2, Lassie Come Home, is now available for streaming on Peacock. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Our pleasure.